The rain had come and gone, the seasons had changed, and yet he remained. At the edge of a worn-out sidewalk, beside a rusted bench, he sat every single day. Morning till dusk, come sun or storm. The world passed him by, busy footsteps, honking cars, and hurried lives. But he never moved, never chased, never barked, just waited. His name was Max, a medium-sized golden retriever with eyes that once sparkled, but now just seemed tired. His fur was matted, his body frail, but something about his stillness carried a weight. A silent question in every passerby's heart. Asterisk, why is he here? Asterisk. It started almost a year ago. An old woman who lived alone in a small apartment down the street had once walked this very sidewalk every morning. Her steps were slow, her cane tapping gently beside her, and Max was her shadow, her companion, her protector. But one day she left with a suitcase and never came back. What Max didn't know was that she had been taken to a care home, diagnosed with late-stage dementia. In her fading memory, Max had been left behind, forgotten but never forgetful. From that day forward, he returned to the bench where she used to rest, where she once fed him bits of bread and whispered soft words into his ear. He sat, as if time would rewind and bring her back. Children passed by, pointing. "Mommy, why is that dog always sitting there?" "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe he's waiting for someone." One day, a teenager tried to pet him. Max looked up with tired eyes but didn't move. When the boy offered him food, Max gently nudged it away. It wasn't the right smell. Not her scent. Not the one he was waiting for. Time became blurred for Max. Weeks felt like days, days like seconds. But for the people in town, he became a fixture. Some called him the ghost dog. Others simply nodded, offering food or water, which he rarely accepted. He wasn't hungry for food. He was hungry for something else. Connection. Closure. A familiar voice. It wasn't that people didn't try to help. A local rescue shelter came once, trying to coax him away. Volunteers brought warm blankets, dog treats, even toys. But Max refused to leave. He pulled against the leash, whined, and looked back toward the bench with such pain in his eyes that they let him go. One evening, just as the sun dipped below the rooftops, a young woman named Eliza passed by. She was new in town, moving in to take care of her ailing father. She noticed Max on her daily walks, and unlike others, she didn't just offer food. She sat, quietly, at a distance. Days turned into weeks. Each time, she sat a little closer. She began to talk to him, not in baby talk or pity, but like a friend. "I don't know who you're waiting for, buddy, but whoever it is must have loved you a lot." Max never responded, but he didn't leave either. His eyes followed her every time she stood up. And once, just once, his tail thumped softly against the pavement. Then came the night of the first snow. The wind howled. Most people stayed indoors. But Eliza couldn't sleep. Something tugged at her. She grabbed a blanket, some warm chicken soup in a container, and ran to the sidewalk. Max was there, curled up tightly beneath the bench, shivering. She dropped the blanket over him. "I can't let you freeze to death out here, Max. Please, just tonight. Come with me." He looked up, weak, hesitant. His legs trembled as he stood. And for the first time in nearly a year, he walked away from the bench. Eliza led him to her porch, then inside. He didn't explore, didn't wag, just lay quietly by the door. That night, she sat beside him, her hand resting gently on his back. And in the silence, Max let out a long, low sigh, a sound of sorrow, perhaps, or maybe peace. A moment passed, and Eliza whispered, "You can wait here now, Max. I'll wait with you." The next morning, the sun rose over a quiet street, a porch, and a new kind of stillness. But Max wasn't at the bench anymore. He had moved, and someone was waiting with him. To be continued. Eliza had never considered herself a dog person. She wasn't afraid of dogs, just never thought she'd end up sharing her home with one. But Max was different. He wasn't just a dog. He was a story, a memory, a wound left open in time. The first few days were quiet. Max barely moved from the door. He ate little, only when Eliza sat near him and whispered words he didn't fully understand. But somehow they comforted him. She didn't rush him. She didn't try to change him. She just sat. One afternoon, Eliza found an old photo album in her father's boxes. Inside was a faded picture of the woman Max had once waited for, Mrs. Doreen Lancaster. Eliza gasped. She remembered that name. The care home had mentioned a woman with a golden retriever, who was heartbroken to leave him behind. Eliza knew what she had to do. She made a few calls. It wasn't easy. Records were scattered, staff had changed, but eventually she found the place. Rose Hill Home for Seniors, just a 2-hour drive away. The woman, Doreen, was still there. She didn't remember much anymore. But sometimes on good days she asked about a dog. Eliza looked at Max. "Do you want to see her?" She wasn't sure he understood. But when she opened the car door, he didn't hesitate. He jumped in. It was the most energy he'd shown since leaving the bench. The ride was silent. Max sat still, looking out the window, eyes focused, as if he knew something important was about to happen. Eliza's hands trembled on the wheel. Would this hurt him? Would it help? Rose Hill stood quiet and gentle among winter-bare trees. Eliza walked Max through the entrance. A nurse named Carla met them with soft eyes. "She's in the garden today. It's one of her lucid days." The garden was small, surrounded by a low stone wall, with benches and dried vines curled along wooden arches. Doreen sat in a wheelchair, hands in her lap, eyes lost somewhere far away. Max stopped. For a moment he didn't move. Then his tail twitched. His ears perked up. And with a sudden pull, he lunged forward, gently but eagerly. Eliza stepped back. Doreen blinked. Her eyes shifted. She stared at Max as he sat before her, slowly lifting one paw like he used to. Her hand trembled as she reached forward. "Max." It was the first time in years that name left her lips. Max leaned into her touch, eyes closed. Doreen let out a soft sob. "You came back to me. You waited." Eliza looked away, tears running down her face. The moment was raw, pure, like something sacred had just unfolded. They stayed like that for over an hour. Doreen smiled. She told stories. Some didn't make sense. Others were like echoes from a life that once was. But Max didn't care. He listened. He rested his head on her lap. He was home. When the sun began to set, a nurse approached. "She gets tired quickly these days." Eliza nodded. She gently clipped the leash to Max's collar. "Come on, boy. Time to go." But Max didn't budge. He looked up at Eliza, then back at Doreen. For the first time in weeks, he let out a soft bark. "I know," Eliza whispered. "You want to stay?" Doreen looked at her. "He can, if it's all right, he can stay here." Eliza hesitated. Max looked healthier just in that hour than he had in months. His eyes were brighter, his spirit lighter. "Yes," she said finally. "Yes, he can." Max stayed. And from that day forward, he had a new bench. Not the old rusty one in town, but a soft patch of grass beside Doreen's chair. They grew old together. She with fading memory, he with tired bones. But they were together. And sometimes that's all the healing you need. Back in town, the old bench sat empty. People noticed. Some missed the sight of him. But most smiled, knowing the story had changed. They didn't know where he went. But they knew one thing for sure. Max had finally stopped waiting. To be continued. The seasons turned again. Spring returned to the gardens of Rose Hill, filling the air with the scent of new life. Flowers blossomed along the edges of the cobblestone paths. Birds sang in the branches above. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Max lay in the grass beside Doreen's chair, content, loved, and home. Every morning, a nurse would wheel Doreen out under the arch of wisteria vines. And without needing a command, Max would rise from his little bed in the hallway and walk beside her like clockwork. His legs weren't as strong as before, and he moved slowly now, but his eyes still lit up every time she smiled. Though Doreen's memories came and went like wisps of smoke, her recognition of Max never faded. On the good days, she'd speak to him, tell him stories as if they were picking up from years ago. On the bad days, she'd simply stroke his head in silence. And Max would stay beside her, unmoving, like a living memory anchoring her to the world. Eliza visited often, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She'd bring fresh treats, new blankets, even read books aloud to both of them. Max would always rise when he saw her. She was the bridge between the sorrow of the past and the peace he'd found now. One morning, the staff at Rose Hill noticed something. Doreen didn't come out to the garden. Her room was quiet. She had passed away in her sleep, a smile on her face, her hand resting on the edge of the small bed where Max always curled up each night. Eliza was called in. Max didn't cry. He didn't whine. He simply sat by the side of the empty bed, his head bowed, tail still. Nurses tried to comfort him, but he barely moved. He stayed there all day. And that night, for the first time, he didn't eat. Eliza sat beside him. She's gone, Max. She's resting now. But she loved you. So much. Max looked at her. There was a deepness in his eyes that didn't seem animal at all. It was human. It was understanding. Eliza made a decision. Max wasn't meant to be alone again. She brought him back home. Her home. This time he didn't resist. He followed her, limping slightly, but with a quiet dignity. He sniffed the edges of her porch, then slowly lay down in the same spot he once did during that winter snow. Months passed. Max began to slow more and more. His steps shorter, his naps longer. But he was never alone. Eliza worked from home now. She told him stories just like Doreen did. Played soft music for him. Let him rest his head on her feet while she typed. Then, one summer afternoon, Max didn't get up from his nap. He had passed peacefully, eyes closed, body warm, lying on the porch of the only other place he ever called home. Eliza buried him in her backyard, beneath the cherry blossom tree. She planted daisies around the spot and placed a small stone with an engraving. You waited for her. We waited with you. Now rest, sweet Max. Word spread in town. People who had once passed by him on the sidewalk came to pay respects. Children left flowers. Old neighbors brought candles. Because Max wasn't just a dog. He was a reminder of loyalty, of love, of the simple, powerful courage it takes to wait, even when the world forgets. And though the bench on that old sidewalk stayed empty, people often looked at it and smiled. Somewhere in the wind, they swore they could still hear the soft jingle of a collar and feel the presence of a golden retriever who taught an entire town what it means to truly love. Max's story didn't end with his last breath. It lived on, in Eliza's heart, in the children who heard his tale, in every lonely soul who learned that being forgotten doesn't mean being unloved. And in a world rushing forward, he remains a still point in memory. Max waited, and in the end, he was never truly alone. / the end.